Hey guys, it's Brad. Thanks for checking out our video today. I'm Brad with Arborview Properties. We're a house buying company out of North Metro Atlanta. You probably checked out one of our other videos about how does seller financing work. We buy some houses from time to time where we do seller financing. We also sell houses to people on seller financing. It's a great way to basically earn some money for a house over time. That monthly cash flow, we call it mailbox money. And then the benefit of the seller financing is that you don't own the house, right? You don't have to pay the property taxes on it. You don't have to deal with maintenance and repairs. You don't own it. You just hold a note, and your note is your asset. You can sell that note if you wanted to and actually capture that money. There are lots of people who buy notes. I know a lot of people who actually buy them in their retirement accounts. They use self-directed retirement accounts, and they buy notes to properties, and they earn the interest, and the interest is paid to their retirement account. And you know, it's a great way to fatten up your retirement account with basically passive income. So anyways, different seller financing scenarios. So this is going a little bit deeper than the other video. There's a few different ways you can do seller financing. These are kind of the main three. There's even more like hybrid approaches where you amortize and then you do interest and you do like adjustable rate loans. And I'm not going to get into all that, but these are kind of the main things that we do. So over here is kind of the tried and true, pretty common, the way most mortgages work. It's just an amortized loan. It would be equal payments over time. Sorry, excuse my handwriting. I know it's terrible, but so it's equal payments over time. Typically, it's fixed interest. It's a fixed rate. And then let's say if you did it over 30 years, eventually after 30 years, it's going to be paid in full, right? The buyer doesn't owe you any money anymore. You've earned all your interest. Everything's done. You use what's called an amortization schedule. You can find them online. I've got some built in Excel. They're available everywhere, but it's a way you can calculate what the payments and the interest and everything are over time, so that ultimately at the end of the term the loan is paid off. If you've ever bought a car or bought a house and you paid it off over that fixed term and it's paid in full at the end of the term, you basically did an amortized loan. Amortized means it just pays itself off over time. Another option is interest only. The payments every month, terrible handwriting, are only applied to interest. This was a popular thing. I can't write today, I'm sorry. And I know I write upside down. Someone told me that a long time ago. I don't know how that happened, but I do. But anyways, the interests are only applied to principal, so your principal balance, principal stays the same. Okay. Principal stays the same. So your payments, the payments every month are only applied towards interest, and typically that's like calculated on a simple interest rate. So let's just say it's 5%. You would just take the balance of let's say it's $10,000 times 5% divided by 12 is what your monthly payments are. You could also do quarterly payments. You could make the payments whenever you want. So basically, the payments are only being applied towards interest. These were popular back before the crash. A lot of people did interest-only mortgages because they basically were assuming that the value of the house would go up over time, and that in 3, 4, 5 years they were going to sell the house, and because the value of the house had gone up over time, they could sell it for more money than they bought it for, and they would get their equity, they would make money and get their equity back over time, right? And then during the time period, the seller or the mortgage company or the bank would just get interest payments every month on the amount owed, and then whenever the house is sold and paid off, they got their money back. And then so that's interest only. Not as common anymore, but it still applies in some interest scenarios. Sometimes we'll do interest only on On a very short-term loan, we've done some seller financing where we purchased a house from a seller and we were going to flip it. So we were only going to own it for a few months. We were going to go in, we were going to rehab it, and we were going to ultimately resell it within a few months. And by rehabbing it, we're increasing the value of the property. We're adding value to it. So we're going to make money on our profit, and then we just pay the seller interest-only payments during that time period. So every month we just send them a check just for the amount of the interest, and then in 3, 4, 5, 6 months when we go sell the property after we're done with the rehab, the seller gets paid off the amount that they owe. And again, in all these scenarios, these are all spelled out in the promissory note. The promissory note spells out the terms of the transaction, the terms of the deal, and that information is all signed. And then you get a security deed recorded for all this, so you have collateral to the property. Let's jump over here to the balloon payment. Basically what that means is you could amortize the payments over 30 years, but let's say in 5 years there's a balloon payment. That means in 5 years that loan has to be paid in full. So on the 60-month mark, that the buyer has to pay you off in full. They have to either sell a property or they have to refinance it with someone else. And after 5 years, you're going to get all your money. You're going to get paid off. Okay? Or you could do it in 1 year, or you could do it in 2 years, whatever you want, 25 years. It doesn't matter. But you would do a balloon payment, and they're going to calculate your interest. And the balloon can be applied to interest only too, right? You just have to be paid off within a certain period of time, 5 years, 1 year, 2 years, whatever. And then on amortize, you can amortize the payments over time so that the monthly payment works out to amortize the loan. And then in 5 years, whatever the remaining loan balance is at that time, that has to be paid in full. We do these balloon payments sometimes with sellers who want to have the security of knowing that they're going to get paid off in a few years, and they want to know that they're going to get their money back. Or in this scenario I talked about with a short-term loan, maybe it's for only like 6 to 12 months, where we're just flipping the house and we're not planning to keep it long-term. We'll do a balloon payment. We also do these balloon payments in scenarios where maybe we know that we're going to go refinance the house with a bank. Maybe we need to buy the house and we need to rehab it and we need to put a tenant in it. We need to fix it up and then put a tenant in it and rent it out. Well, usually with a lot of banks, after 6 months, they consider that amount seasoned because we've improved the value of the property. We have a paying tenant in the property, and we can go back to our local community bank that we use, and we can actually refinance the property into a 30-year fixed rate loan at a very competitive interest rate. And then the bank holds the note to the property. And during the refinance, the seller would get paid off what they're owed. So we do the balloons in those cases. Maybe we'll do a 2-year balloon, which basically means we need to refinance the property within 2 years. We're going to pay you off within 2 years. But during that time period, you can earn the interest. And you can negotiate all the terms of this, right? I've done instances where we did a 6-month balloon payment, and basically, no matter if I paid the seller off in 1 month or 6 months, I paid them the same amount of interest. The balloon payment was the same. And what we did in this one particular scenario is we paid them all the interest up front at closing as like a down payment. So I think it was like a $60,000 note on the house, and we didn't actually make any monthly payments to the seller. We just had a balloon payment, whereas in 6 months we had to pay them off in full. We had to pay them $60,000 in full in 6 months, and the total interest over that period was $5,000. We gave them the $5,000 up front at closing when we bought the house. That way they had that cash as a down payment, and then we just owed them the remaining $60,000 whenever we, in 6 months. It had to be paid in full. In this case, we went in and rehabbed the house, and we sold it right at 4 months. So we put it on the market at 3 months, and we got a contract on the house literally within 24 hours of us putting it on the market. And then we had about a 30-day close, and about 30 days later, we sold the house, and the seller got paid back their 60 grand plus the 5,000 in interest. So they made $65,000 for the house instead of 60. So it worked out great for them, and they didn't really need the payments. They didn't want to have to fuss with the monthly payments. So we just basically said all the payments and interest were going to be, all the interest would just be paid at the end when it's paid off, and then they got a little bit up front. So those are the different scenarios. There's also this little thing here called a substitution of collateral. I don't know if I spelled collateral right, but that's okay. I think I spelled it right. I'm generally pretty good at spelling, but sometimes I'm not. Sometimes sellers don't want to be paid off because they want to continue to earn the interest on the property over time. They like that mailbox money. They like the cash flow. So we can actually put a substitution of collateral clause in the note, in the promissory note, which basically means that if we as the buyer decide to sell that property, we can actually transfer this note to a different property, and we'll continue to pay the seller the terms that we agreed to. Let's say it's $500 a month principal and interest payment over 30 years. So we would just basically take a different property and apply that as collateral, and then sell the original property and just transfer it. That would be a modification to the promissory note. My attorney would draft all those documents, and that would get recorded. But all we would do is just change the collateral property, the underlying collateral property, and then you as a seller would continue to receive your monthly principal and interest payments over the next 30 years, just as we agreed to originally. But the collateral property changes. That's not very common, but it's something that can be done. So these are some main seller financing scenarios. Again, there's some hybrids between these two, and you could do, interest only for 6 months, and then, or you could do delayed payments, and then you could add the payments to the balance. There's so many different ways, but these are the main kind of 3 ways that you would typically do a seller finance. This is typically for long term, like if you just wanted to carry it over time. If you wanted to get paid off in full quickly, you could do that. Or again, if it was another short term where you did want monthly interest payments and it was a short term loan, we might do just a short term interest only, where we just pay you interest every month, and then you get paid off maybe on a 1-year balloon, or a 2-year, or a 3-year, 4-year, 5-year, whatever it is. We typically don't like to do less than 12 months, but we've done 6. 12 months is just easier because sometimes we've had to do like a 1-month extension, and with the 1-month extension, then you got to go file the paperwork, and you have to do a modification of the agreement and all that, and it's a lot of legwork just to extend it for 1 month. So a lot of times it's easier to do a 12-month balloon, and then if we pay you off in 3 or 6 months, then we pay you off in 3 or 6 months, right? So hope this helps. Thanks for checking out the video today. Again, I'm Brad with Arborview Properties. If you have a house you do need to sell, you can reach us at 770-810-5715, or click the link below. There's a link to our website, arborviewhomebuyers.com, and you can fill out the web form, and there's actually a section in there if you're interested in seller financing. There's a box you can check where you can ask us more about that. So thanks for checking out the video. We appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great day.